Welcome to The People Make the Places, Episode 6 on Singapore and Bali. I've never been to these two countries before. Gena wanted to take me somewhere special for my 70th birthday, and so she found a friend of hers, Dennis, who had an amazing program in Bali, and he really acted as our inspiration and our host for hooking up with local people from Bali. And since it's on the way to Bali, I connected with my longtime friend, Kua Chang Hock, who I met through adaptive technology when I worked at Arkenstone in the 90s. It was an opportunity to see him and to reconnect and to talk about technology over the years. Chang was always involved with technology with his own company in Singapore, and he tested and brought the first accessible GPS from Sendero Group into Singapore. Navigating as a blind person is one of the more complicated things to do, particularly when you're in a developing country. We have recordings of our experiences along the way, and they'll be interspersed with some of Gena's postings on her Instagram feed, which is Gena, Blind Woman of Action. It's always fun to hear the actual sounds of the environment, of the waves or the crickets or the frogs or the monkeys in this case. The people who make Singapore and Bali include our very special travel agent, Carrie, flight attendants, Chang and his friends, Dennis, the hotel staff, drivers and guides, especially Wira. Okay, we are now in Singapore out on our first excursion. I think it's September 10th, 2024. And I'm thinking about the people that have made this trip happen so far, and it's been a combination starting out in the San Francisco airport, flight attendants. I had this amazing flight attendant named Michelle who really looked after us. And now we're going to go experience the Singapore Metro Underground. It's this whole world of hallways and shops. It's like a giant mall with shops along the way connecting us to the different train lines. And we have our wonderful friend Chang Hock, and he's brought two friends along so that Gena and I have somebody we can talk to and get descriptions of things from. I'm with a guy named Michael. Gena's with Molly. And Chang Hock has his dog Grace. I think the full name is Gracefully. I've been keeping track of how many people want us to use elevators, and it's pretty prevalent.
I think we're okay, right? You guys need help?
We're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries. Have a good day.
You see three blind people standing together, and people obviously come up and ask help.
This is mild traffic now. By evening, 4 or 5 o'clock, this whole place is people all over.
Wow.
So the dog also has to push her way around.
I
the
know.
People. So when office close at 5, it's chocolate block until about 7.
This is our friend Chang, who I've known for 30 years, starting at 1995 or so at Arkenstone,
Yes.
right?
94 we walk around.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of GPSing together, starting with the Strider days. And Gena's here, of course.
Hi, welcome to Singapore.
And then Grace is down here on the floor. She's a yellow lab, right?
Yes, she's a yellow Labrador.
From
GDB.
guide dogs.
San
And Chang
Francisco.
had the first guide dog in Singapore. What year was that?
2005.
05, yeah.
That's when we started and get the government to change the law to allow guide dogs around Singapore.
And you might notice Chang has lost his voice a bit with some cancer on the larynx, right?
The larynx,
Yeah.
yes.
He's just as chatty as he's always been.
Too much gossiping.
Too much gossiping.
So we are now in the Orchard station, which is way underground, and there are lots of shops around. So this is like a big underground world. Like you can go on walking for all the shopping malls in the underground tunnel for more than half a mile.
And Chang has always been involved in adaptive technology. He had his own company doing that, which is how we met. And collaborating again, looking at ways to increase independent navigation in Singapore, right?
Yes. focusing on indoor navigation. Now that indoor navigation is number of months of run, I think it's time to make use of it and make it better.
And that's particularly important in all of these maze of tunnels underground. The nice thing is there's no intersections here, no cars you have to deal with, but there's so many shops. I mean, they're just nonstop, one shop after the other, so there must be thousands. And I really want to know what's here as we walk around, not to mention how do we get to the train station.
Because there are now over 100 underground stations that are complex.
And then we know along the way, Gena wants to touch every flower and everything that's, whatever's interesting.
But I also learned that the government controls all the flowers and bushes in the areas that we are in. And so if you were to pull a leaf or a flower, you would actually be fined or go to jail.
And they're serious about it, right?
Oh, yes, if they see you. But of course, they might give you a tap the first time.
Oh,
Yeah.
You get a warning.
Yes.
Gena, what else are you looking forward to in Singapore?
Well, I'm looking forward to the indoor garden, which is also just a garden inside, but it's very humid and hot outside, so I think they've acclimated their lifestyle to cool areas underground, indoor, and even this train station is very cool and comfortable.
Very serious air conditioning here.
Yeah.
Cheng, I've noticed so far, and maybe it's just because of the language barrier, people here really want to grab me and push me more than I'm used to in the U.S.
Yes.
Is that pretty? I mean,
It's common, yes.
they're just trying to be helpful.
Yes, they either ignore you or they are over helpful.
They ignore you or they're over helpful. Okay,
Yes.
yeah, I get that.
Yes.
Yeah, when we arrived at the airport yesterday, this guy, he didn't speak any English, so really his only way of communicating was to grab me and propel me.
So
I wanted to know, Cheng, what was the process that you needed to use to make it possible to change the law to allow guide dogs in Singapore?
personal interaction with members of parliament.
Uh-huh.
That was my fortunate privilege because I got to know them when they were in university.
Oh, wow.
So they were in their young
And how
days.
many years did it take you to kind of start that conversation till it actually became law?
They became friends with me when they became members of parliament, which is like, in the US, is like your congressman.
Right.
So when I sounded the guy out in 2003, he told me, go for it and do it quickly because there's no guarantee that I'll get re-elected the next time round.
Yes.
So-
Wow.
So in 2004, I met up with Bob Phillips in GDB.
Uh-huh, of course.
And
I
then
know
we
him
talked.
well.
It was through Michael Hinkson
Yes.
that put me in touch because I caught up with Michael Hinkson at the NFB convention in, I think, 03 or 04. Then GDB said yes, they're willing to help, and then the process started. So when I got my dog in 2005, I came back on the 1st of August. The law was changed.
Wow.
September 19. The train system allowed guide dogs
Yes.
since 1987.
Oh.
And that was the only facility that allowed guide dogs. I couldn't go into public buildings.
Right.
I couldn't go into restaurants. I couldn't get into the shops.
What's your name?
Hello, I'm Molly here.
And where's Michael?
And this is the husband, Michael, here.
Husband Michael. All right. So I know when I think of Singapore, the people who make the places are right here, and Kua Cheng Hock is the main man.
Gena, Blind Women of Action in Singapore, first day in Singapore, and it's very interesting in their metro that they have a solid wall that was originally intended to keep in the air conditioning. It's very cool down here. And they have like an elevator door, so when it's time to get on or off, these elevator doors open. And a secondary bonus is that so no blind person can fall in, nor a sighted person, and that seems like a great safety tool that they're using.
This is to remind you the train is coming.
Yeah, I like it.
Please mind the platform gap.
Totally can hear the sound of the train coming, and next the doors are going to open and people will exit, and then we will be able to enter.
Okay, the train has arrived. Okay, the train is opening. Okay, now
It can go faster, faster.
Okay, here you go.
I know there's going to be a time.
Somebody has, when you see
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Here's a bit of a summary of our trip so far on September 16th, 2024. We are now sitting in Bali, and there's the bigger town, which is Denpasar, And then the neighborhood we're in is called Sunar, Sanur. And we're at a hotel called Tanjung Sari. And there's 8 bungalows, so it's very unique. In contrast to the Marriott that we stayed in on the 21st floor in Singapore with all the amenities. Big room, city view. Now we're sitting under a thatched umbrella having breakfast at the restaurant hotel right on the beach. And so far we've had Singapore 4 days working on adaptive technology demonstrations, meeting with people about indoor navigation in the malls and the railway stations, and then going around town doing a little bit of sightseeing and having a wonderful time. The people that made that place was my friend Cheng Hak and his family and his extended friends. Many of them go back 40, 50 years, and we all had a great time getting to know each other, and they were super helpful and in hosting us in Singapore. And then on to Bali, where Gena's friend, former client Dennis, hosted us, or is hosting us, and met us at the airport, brought us to the hotel, showed us around. And we will be seeing later this week the schools that he and his late wife founded for young women and girls to get a better education. And more about that later. But here in this Tanjung Sari hotel so far, and this seems to be characteristic of Bali, everybody is super helpful, overly helpful, but they don't really know and they don't speak English well. So it's just figuring out things as we go. And here's these 2 blind people wanting to find their way. And then they want to grab us and push us and shove us in the direction that we need to go. And we want to learn ourselves, and that doesn't work if somebody's always guiding us. So they're learning, we're learning. The nice thing is they're super helpful and they're concerned about our safety. So we went out on a bike path yesterday, and there's lots of bicycles, and this one guy who didn't speak any English at all was chasing after us and grabbing us and exclaiming about people we almost ran into. And so we learned which side of the path we were supposed to be on, and we did manage to get back safely. Getting to our room is a little bit tricky because you go into these narrow pathways between the buildings with lots of plants and little temples and probably 5 or 6 turns to get to our room. And if you go down the wrong one of those turns, then it's somebody else's bungalow. But we're figuring it out, and when we've made wrong turns, people say stuff, and we get to chat and get to meet them. So they're all people that are part of this landscape at the location we're at right now for a couple more days, and then we move on to the village where Dennis lives, and we'll have a whole new experience.
Gena, blind woman of action in Ubud, Bali. I'm here with a friend of mine, Dennis, and he started an organization that I've been supporting that I think is super meaningful. So Dennis, tell us about your organization.
Yes, we started the organization about 15 years ago, and we decided to focus on keeping young girls in school. That's one of our major focuses. And then also to do after-school programs for children. And so it's been very beneficial, and we're very happy to have Mike and Gena here to see everything.
Yeah, and a couple other things that were really touching to me is they've installed numerous bookshelves in kindergartens and higher level education, and they fill them with the books. They support the whole project of making the bookshelves with local materials and local people, and providing the books bought here in Bali, as well as they have a birthing center. So all these things really seem important to me, and I am so happy to support this organization. And it has been an amazing opportunity to see this foundation in action. Like, we've been with the little kids in their classroom. They're learning English and they're learning their own languages and writing. It's been an amazing experience. Great to meet the kids and the teachers. Thank you, Dennis.
Okay, thank you very much,
Yes.
Gena. Balinese Children's Education Foundation. So it's a nonprofit organization in America.
Ciao!
Your name is?
My name is Jatmika.
Jatmika. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Yes, here.
Thank
Sama-sama.
Yeah, wait. Kamu dari kah? Oh, dah, ya dah.
Hi.
My name is Devi.
Defi? Kupu-kupu? Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Ya, sama-sama. My name
My
is
name is Echa.
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 Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sama-sama.
My name is Melissa.
Melissa.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, sama-sama.
My name is Kia.
Kia.
Thank you.
Yes,
Sama-sama.
sama-sama.
My name is Mora.
Mora? Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Sama-sama.
My name is Effie.
Effie.
Ah,
My name is
sama-sama.
Mawa.
Ismala?
Thank you.
Yes, sama-sama.
My name is Marcelia.
Marcelia.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You got a postcard, didn't you?
You got a
My
postcard.
name is Cynthia.
Cynthia. Nice to meet you.
Yes, sama-sama.
What's your name?
Gunde.
Runde. Nice to meet you.
Here you go. Sama-sama.
My name is Lumradi.
Runya D. Nice to meet you.
Yes, sama-sama. Yes. Any more? Yeah.
That's all.
Okay.
In Indonesian, sing.
Lutut up.
I'm so excited. That sound, it sounds like a seal. It's one of the frogs here. I love the sounds. And it was also described to me about beautiful lights in the evening time at this beautiful outdoor restaurant where you get to hear all these sounds, and there's a beautiful breeze on the patio, and it's right next to the ocean. Oh, it's so exciting. Listen to these animals. I love that.
It's a pleasant morning here in Bali, standing on the deck of our new place with the wonderful soundscape of the spotted doves that are chirping, if you want to call that chirping, in stereo. And the cicadas going, the sun's coming out. It's cool this time, maybe 7:30 in the morning. It'll definitely warm up later. These cicadas have a interesting static sound level, and then all of a sudden they ramp up like 10 times as loud, or it's almost uncomfortable on the ears. What's causing them to do that? You might hear a fountain going too. There's a smell of these mosquito coils that burn around here to help limit the mosquitoes, because there's dengue fever, which can be a really nasty thing to get. It comes from mosquitoes.
This morning I thought there was a gecko in our room going on.
Oh, there was a gecko.
But each little location has these mats, these like grass mats on the ground, and I heard it like fussing with the grass mat. So it was making more than just a gecko sound. It was navigating across the floor, making a...
Normally they hang out on the ceiling.
Well, this one was on the floor, on the mat.
I think she's imagining things. I was kind of excited because it sounds kind of like a frog. And Gina was gone yesterday, and when she came back, I said, I'm not going to say anything because she's going to freak out if she thinks there's a frog. And then she happened to say, oh, by the way, those things that sound like frogs are actually geckos. And they're good to have because they eat the insects.
The sound's getting louder. Yeah, there are some monkey jumping to the trees, and then every single monkey like producing their own sound. Maybe they're calling her friend or their friend to get closer, come along and play together. There could be more than 20 monkeys on the top of the trees here we can see.
And some of them run close by us, like a foot or two away.
Yeah, they're just crossing the road, and then they also playing on the pond.
They're playing on the phone?
Yes, there's the pond, like water, like a fish pond. Yeah,
Oh, on the
fish
pond.
Yeah,
I thought you said they're playing on the phone. It'd be just like our kids.
Fish pond. They don't have the mobile. Also some monkey with a baby. Monkey with a baby on the chair that's beside us. They're running away.
So they hold their baby
They
monkeys
hold the
with their
baby
tail?
on the chest, yeah.
Oh, in the chest.
Yeah. The sound's getting louder. We can hear it.
It's now Saturday, and we have a tour guide, and we're going to explore, to begin with, the monkey forest, which is near our hotel. It's about 12 hectares, so not very big. They study the monkeys. They've had to sterilize some of them because of overpopulation. And Gina and I are waiting for our tour guide while he gets a ticket. We got the fountain going, and sounds pretty busy with a lot of tourists around. And we're told to be careful with our stuff because the monkeys can steal your sunglasses. They're referred to as naughty.
Yes. This is our second time seeing monkeys, once in Costa Rica, and here I'm so excited. I love monkeys. I can't wait to...
Well, we'll see if you say that after we're done and they steal your cane.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'm very excited.
And we also saw the monkeys a couple of days ago on the veranda of our hotel porch villa. It'd be interesting because they are pretty social, and apparently there's staff around to help kind of fend them off and keep them at arm's distance because tourists tend to want to get pictures up close, and that's asking for trouble.
And I do have a shirt tied around my waist, which I meant to leave in the car, so I'm curious if they're going to play with my shirt.
They might steal it. Then we'll see a monkey with a Gena shirt running around.
You be protected.
Just sanding by the,
by the
sandpaper.
sand.
It is
Beautiful.
special done by the woman carver.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, because woman is more patient than the man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
True. The men want to boom, boom,
Yeah,
boom.
the men
The women are like
smooth, yeah, smooth,
and
but
patient.
slowly patient.
Slowly.
This need a lot of patience.
Beautiful.
Thank you. So it is all the processing and the quality of wood, yeah. And then the last of the product, you can continue to fill inside.
Great. Thank you.
Gina and I wanted to just talk about some of the blindness issues that we kick around when we come back to the hotel on our own and contemplate what are some of the differences with the U.S. way of dealing with blind people. And a lot of it's the same, but maybe it's magnified here because of the language barrier. People speak a little bit of English. We've only run into a couple of people who speak what I would say was fluent English. And we're having our breakfast, which is typically a banana smoothie called a lassi, and a few other things, lots of good fruit here. So one of the things that struck me initially when we got into the airport, and it's continued to be the case, is because of the language barrier, people grab us a lot more because they're concerned for our safety. So they're pushing and pulling, and I just go rigid when that happens and say, no thanks, or try to fend them off in a kind way. And they're really driven from two perspectives. One is they've rarely seen blind people independently, so they can't be faulted for just having a normal human reaction. They can't communicate with us. And so it's a double-edged sword that makes it difficult to get around. The other thing that strikes me a lot is that they're very concerned about every crack in the sidewalk, every step, and they want to count the number of steps. And so when they're grabbing you, trying to balance you on the steps, and stopping in front of you, which my cane is running into the person because they're stopping, because they don't want me to fall down the steps. It means that getting around with other people's help is stressful. Isn't that a cool sounding bird? we don't want to offend anybody. They're really trying to be helpful. So it's a combination of we're thankful, but we're also trying to politely fend them off. And it's difficult because they just have a knee-jerk reaction when they see us approaching steps to grab us and to count the steps. We also have a host who's English-speaking, and he's never been around blind people. So there is the opportunity to contrast how he's reacting with perfectly good English and how the people that don't speak English are reacting. And the thing they're worried about the most is all the little cracks and bumps in the sidewalk, and it's too narrow, and certainly the steps. But what we want to know is, where do we turn left? Where do we go right? Where do we go straight? And my learning style is that I have to explore and get lost and do it on my own to ingrain the pattern in my head. And if somebody's showing me, even if I'm on their elbow, I'm not really learning as much. I'm trying to, but I know from my processes that exploring on my own is the way that I learn. And Gena operates differently, so this speaks to another point, which is, of course, all blind people are different. We have different systems. We have different ways of doing things. And she handles steps and some of her navigation differently than I do.
Yes, for me, I like taking somebody's arm. I do like, though, getting information from them. And I do make a mental map in my mind if we turn right or left. But I'm interested in tactile landmarks, as is Mike. But it's kind of in my initial walk with them. And they don't really understand landmarks, so to say that, well, there's grass here, or there's a border here, or there's a fountain here. And of course, we pick up things that are audible, such as fountains and different landmarks that we can hear. But I also am pretty cautious on stairs. I took a really bad fall a few years ago, and so I kind of go one step at a time. And not when I know something, but here in Bali, there might be a step like onto a patio, but it doesn't extend all the way to the left and to the right. So if you miss it with your foot, if you think it's there, and it is there in a particular section, but if you don't feel with your cane, you could be stepping onto a different space where there is no step. So I'm just more cautious. And I also don't mind taking people's arm. I want to know how to get to things by myself, and I know how to get, say, from our room to the main street. But also, sometimes I find it stressful having to navigate on my own in all unfamiliar areas, so I decide to lessen my stress by being willing to take somebody's elbow.
And another way that we're different is that Gena is very social, and so asking for help is not just something that is beneficial for navigation. It's her way of connecting with people, and she's better at that than I am, and it's a technique that works well for her. I like discovering things on my own, and when people take that away from me, I really feel like they're interfering with my fun, and it's hard to tell them, don't do that, because I enjoy figuring it out on my own. I enjoy the puzzle. And that's too subtle of a concept to explain to somebody in another language, even to our friend in English. I think he would be offended if I said, don't say anything because you're taking away my fun. And that's a huge part of why we're struggling with this and having this conversation, is because we want to respect our hosts and we want to be thankful for their help and attention and concern, and we don't want to be obnoxious about fending them off. And so there's a constant diplomatic balancing act that's going on, and that in and of itself is taxing. So I find myself getting back to the room after being out with a bunch of people is having a big sigh of relief, like, oh, I can relax now. It's not this ongoing balancing act to be an ambassador. The other thing is that Gena has zero vision, and although I was totally blind until age 46, I have some useful travel vision, and you can't ignore the fact that that's helpful. I can't distinguish steps, so I'm very much using my cane, let alone the cracks in the sidewalk. So I don't use it for that, but it's great for landmarks and for detecting light and windows and different things. So that's another thing that makes us different in how we navigate.
Some of my decisions to be discerning about my style of navigating. Am I going to explore or just take somebody's arm is a matter of time, how much time I have, and stress. If I'm stressed out, then I clearly don't want to figure it out on my own. One thing I've noticed here, though, is say we do want to explore and we want to just wander around. There's a lot of eyes on us, even though they don't tell us that. There's people silently around in the property that we're at. And so if we wander off because we intentionally want to explore, they just jump to our rescue, and it's hard for them to understand, like, no, we're just going to keep walking, and it's okay that we don't really know where we're going or what we're in store for. That's hard for them. We are on our first journey alone, unescorted, from the main town in Nui Kuning to our hotel called Alam Shanti on what we believe is a dark road. We're both totally blind, and we are using GPS. The roads are pretty dicey, so it is kind of adventurous. Like, there's big potholes.
Oh, that's that fan from that hotel.
Yeah, one of our landmarks on our way down here, and we have to be careful because there's a bunch of crazy motorcycles riding around, and
There are so many scooters in this town.
you can hear our canes. We basically are trailing things.
It'd be nice if it was either dirt or gravel or pavement or grass, and then we'd follow that surface, but this is a combination of all four. So now we're on this more of the paved area.
Oh, there's amazing cool sounds.
Frogs at the moment,
Cicadas.
crickets.
We have 37 more meters to go according to our audio GPS that we're using.
Good Maps Outdoors.
Good Maps Outdoors.
Yeah, the app that I created along with a wonderful team.
GPS is definitely an important tool.
Kind of sounding like
Building.
we're coming to an end here or something.
Yeah. So now we're having to find some stairs that indicate where we go in. Hello.
Hello, I am Kadek.
Hi, Kadek.
Go straight.
Yeah, towards you.
Yeah.
2 more steps here.
Oh, the fountain went off.
Because evening time we are stopped it.
Yeah, because that's how we find where our place is.
Yeah, that's one of our main landmarks we use for sound.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Kadak.
We made it. We found our entrance to our bungalow.
With a little
and
help from our friends.
with help from Kadek at the end and our GPS. The other thing is we were with a village leader yesterday who's Balinese, and I asked him if somebody was going to have a baby and if the baby was blind, would they know that the baby could grow up and learn skills and be independent like we are? And he said no. That to me, that's very sad. Also, though, when we got here, we did some volunteer work at schools with young children, talking to them about canes and guide dogs and Braille. And we did find out that there were 2 blind teachers in elementary school level. So obviously some of them have found their way to successful careers. It's just more about a mindset.
Yeah, Gina and I try to be amused when these people chase us around because we think we're on our own and, oh, good, we're finding this on our own. And then we make a little bit of a wrong turn and somebody pops up. And they like to say, slowly, slowly, which means, be careful. Slowly, everything is slowly. Yesterday we were at this vista point outside of our restaurant. We were going to take pictures, and there's mountains and a volcano and all this beautiful stuff. And we were near the edge of the platform of the deck. I noticed that this person was going out ahead of us, and I was wondering, is she climbing over a fence, or what's she doing? Why is she getting out there? So I reached out with my cane, and I'm feeling the edge, and our wonderful guide is freaking out. No, get back, don't go there. And I explained to him, I want to understand what's out there. I'm not going to fall off. And then I did get a little bit defensive, and I said, look, I live to be 70 years old. I've survived this long. I'm not going to fall off of a deck. And as I then got down on my knees and explored out, there was this netting, rigid netting, like a trampoline kind of netting that was connected to the platform, and it went out about 10 feet so a person could get on it and then take pictures more in the view of the beautiful vista. And that's where that other girl had gone. So eventually Gina went out there and did a blind woman of action video, And then I crawled out there next to her, and we got a great picture of us sitting next to each other. I think he learned something, and we also learned that, hey, we can be patient and ambassadors to a certain extent, but we don't want to miss out on some sort of amazing experience because other people are overly protective.
That was one of my main thoughts, even just in any new area. What don't we know is around? So we do a lot of research before travel with all kinds of resources, and our connection to local people is very important to us. So we try to connect, find out really neat spots to go to. But I wonder, like, if Mike hadn't started this exploration yesterday, we wouldn't have found that cool netting platform to have really special photos. And that's just a common thing. Everybody was going out there. That's a main photo spot. And the guide would not have told us that if Mike hadn't done his exploring.
One of the things about Gena's social ability that serves her well, we were in the monkey forest here, and the long-tailed monkeys were nearby within 2 or 3 feet, on the fences and jumping into the pools and from the trees. And they have staff that are managing them. Gena's chatting up this one attendant, and I'm kind of thinking, I don't know, he's feeding the monkeys, he's trying to show other people what's going on. Other people want to take pictures, she's being a little chatty. He was intrigued by the fact that we wanted to know all this information about them and about the research of the monkeys and their behavior and what size they were. And Gena said, are we able to touch him? He said, oh, no. They can bite. They only are friendly with their handlers. Next thing you know, he says, kneel down. And she kneels down, and he puts some sweet corn in her hand, and she puts her hand out, and this monkey is putting his or her sweet little hand into Gena's hand, pulling back the corn, and she had just a most amazing, spontaneous experience, all because of her chattiness.
I was a little anxious because they do talk about staying away from the monkeys, and I did know that the staff obviously knew what he was doing. And the monkey was so gentle, like a little teeny hand with claws, and the claws were gentle, and the hand was in my palm, and the monkey was pulling the corn back to put it in its hand and then eat the corn. When I asked him a question, how tall were the monkeys, and I just kind of mimed with my own hand, like at my knee, at my waist, and he caught on immediately. So he then showed me on my leg where it was. Then I wanted to know how long the tail was, and I extended my arm, and he actually touched my arm, like the beginning of my hand, to closer to past my elbow, showing me the length of the monkey's tail. And that is hard to do, to get people to use a method that we really understand in such a quick fashion. So I appreciated how quickly he caught on to a method that worked for me.
The fun, the experience, the thinking goes on. We're not going to change the world within 2 weeks in Bali, but it's an amazing learning experience for us. And of course, we want to make the most out of interacting with people, and we super appreciate the fact that we're not just on a tour bus with a big group. We have this local connection who's doing really meaningful stuff with the people for 25 years, developing new schools for girls to be better educated, and involving us in that process means that we're meeting local people, we're getting to know them.
I love your voice and I love your stories.
Thank you, Gena. Mike seems that Hindu believe in a lot of God. Actually derived from one, however manifested, having a lot of names. The 3 main manifestation God is Brahma, Vishnu, and then Shiva. Right in front of us, the temple named Dalam Agung is a place to pray for Shiva God. Outside area we call Jabat Sisi, middle section we call Jabat Tengah, and then inner section we call Jerawan. Jerawan is the most holy area. Only, I said, people performing a prayer could enter the inner area. Now we are in Jabasisi, or outside area. So outside to the middle, we call it Candi Bentara, split gateway, left and right, which is indicating balance symbol or positive negative symbol. And then from the middle court to the inner court, there will be Koryagong, or uniting gate. This is against the positive and negative combined become one, will be harmony.
Can you tell us, in the Hindu religion, do they have goddesses?
Yes, we do. For example, the ones that I told you about, the goddess of fertility, we call it 3 goddesses. It's a beautiful woman holding a rice paddy on hand. And we also have the goddesses of knowledge. We call Saraswati goddesses. It's a beautiful woman having four hands, one hand holding like a music instrument, one we call violin or something, and then one hand like holding like a ragtime, and then one hand holding like a palm leaf. This is symbol of the knowledge and long life education.
We're in the Holy Water Temple, and we had to wear these sarongs that tie around our waist to differentiate our clean part of our body. And Gena has one on, I have one on, and I think everybody in here has one. And then our guide, he also has a thing around his head, but it doesn't cover the top of his head, it just goes around his forehead.
And it makes him have good thoughts when they enter the temple.
So Gena, tell them about the birth order.
So based on your birth order, you are given an official, so if you're the firstborn, it's Wyon. If you're secondborn, it's Kadek. If you're thirdborn, it's Koman. If you're fourthborn, it's Ketut. And if you're fifthborn, you go back to number 1, to Wyon. And then they do have little scenarios where they add an A or a B to the word I just described to distinguish, but we've met so many Kadeks, and I asked, like, well, how do you know? And so some have revealed more of a name, like Cadet Eki or something along those lines, and that's how they distinguish. But being blind, it is a detriment, because if there's 12 people named Kadek, it's nice to have a distinguishing name so they can tell us when we are interacting with them. And some I know from their voice and from the perfume they wear, I can tell which person it is. But it would be easier if the names weren't the way I just described.
So there's another part of naming which is based on the Sanskrit alphabet. And so when a baby is born, they pick a certain letter that they think identifies with that personality, and they have a name that's based around that. So caste, birth order, Sanskrit, all are part of this naming system, and ours is nothing like that. Gena, for example, is Ibu Gena, which is largely refers to mothers, but not exclusively. I think it's a respect for somebody who's older, and the younger people don't have that Ibu for a woman, and for a man is Papa. So I'm Papa Mike and Ibu Gena. Yeah. So from Papa Mike and Ibu Gena, those are our thoughts about our amazing experience here in Bali.
Bye from Bali.
And a mere 30 hours door to door from Bali through Singapore to San Francisco, back to Reno. I was exhausted but exhilarated by the experience we had. We didn't bring our guide dogs because of the extremely long time on the flights, but also because the culture in Bali just would not have been conducive. The other thing I should mention is that we really like to walk when we explore places. It really wasn't feasible because of the density of scooters and cars on the roads and broken sidewalks. But on the flip side, we were able to have these wonderful drivers, and it would cost only $6 an hour, including their time and their vehicle, to transport us around. So we managed to be quite mobile. We just weren't on foot as much as we would like to be. Our deepest thanks to all the people who made these two countries amazingly fascinating and hospitable to us, including Chang and family and friends in Singapore, Dennis and all the people he knew, and the drivers we met in Bali, all the children and teachers in the schools and in the maternity ward, and of course the hotel drivers and staff and everybody we interacted with over this long and fascinating trip. You can learn more by seeing videos from this trip on the Gena Blind Woman of Action sites, and you can go to crashingthrough.com to connect to the People Make the Places episode list and to learn more about myself, Mike May, and friends. Thanks as always to Derek Lane for his audio polishing. Stay tuned for the next episode dropping at the beginning of next month. It could be on skiing in South America or perhaps on the Galapagos. Since Bali is in Indonesia, we'll close out with one of the best known singers in Indonesia, Rosa. Thanks again for listening.
Telah kutemukan yang aku impikan, kamu
segala kekurangan, semua kelemahan, kau jadikan cinta. Tanpamu aku tak bisa berjalan, mencari cinta sejati tak ku temukan. Darimu aku bisa merasakan kesungguhan hati, cinta yang sejati. Kamu dikirim Tuhan untuk melengkapiku, untuk jaga hatiku. Kamu hasrat terindah untuk cintaku, takkan cemas ku percaya kamu, karena kau jaga tulus cintamu.